Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting advice and guidance in your ear. Zweig Group's team of experts have spent more than 3 decades elevating the industry by helping AEP and environmental consulting firms thrive. And these podcasts deliver invaluable management, industry, client, marketing, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter Podcasts, elevating the design industry one episode at a time.
I've never been mic'd up. I guess that's not for... Are you hearing it on these things? Ah, okay. A little louder? Do I do that here? Okay. All right. Well, I can speak a little louder. I guess I can hear myself too. But anyway, I'm going to give you the background to tell you my story of our company. I founded the John R. McAdams Company in 1979. I wanted it to be not a practice. I was deliberate about not hanging out my shingle. I wanted to create a professional services firm. So you've already seen it, but here we go. I capitalized the firm with $5,000. This is a check I wrote in 1979. You can see it there, $5,000 payable to the John R. McAdams Company. And for that, I got stock certificate number 1. In the upper left, it says number 1, and it's for 5,000 shares of the John R. McAdams Company, as it says down there. And lo and behold, we were funded to begin. That is how it started. But I was deliberate about the starting of this firm. I resigned from the little firm I was in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I resigned in February of '79, and in March, I spent that time planning out this firm. I prepared a manual of the organization, and on the left here is just a chart I drew up in one of my bedrooms about how someday we may be organized. By the way, it was just me alone doing this, so this was the grand view of it. From that chart, then I immediately decided, well, if that's the firm, then that should be the logo in the middle. So that became our logo. And then in 2013, we actually, with Chad Kleinen's help, we cleaned up the logo so it's easier to reproduce and to use. And we've shortened the name by which we do business as McAdams. We're still the John R. McAdams Company Incorporated, doing business as McAdams. Maybe you have seen this logo. That's what we go by now. So I opened the doors. Oh, wait a minute. I rented some Class A office space in which I rented 2 rooms in this building. This actually is the back of the building, but that's our entrance. Around the front is a convenience store and, gas pumps and all that. And on Tuesdays, the tanker truck would come to download the gas, and oh boy, you could hardly stand the fumes in the building. But anyway, that's where this enterprise started. In starting it, I'll tell you, I had a sense of destiny. I did not know what would result from that. I didn't know what we would grow to be. But I wanted to keep alive the possibility that maybe this could become something. And indeed, we have become a successful medium-sized firm. So I was careful not to do anything in the initial steps that I would later regret. I wanted to have a clean start. With that firm that I was with that I left, I took no one with me. I beckoned no clients to come to me. I was just starting out, me against the world, me against the market. I wanted to see what I could do. So I also wanted to have a firm that would grow. Growth was very important, but it was difficult to grow the firm very much in the early years because of my youth. I was 30 years old when I started the firm. I wasn't that well established in the industry or the profession or the market. But I stayed at it, and 15 years in, we began to attract some good talent, some capable people, some other engineers and not just drafter people. And I did my first ownership transition in 1995 so that the firm was growing to 50 people or so, and I got advice, hey, if something were to happen to you, there'd be a mess. You need someone else designated to take it over. So I sold for $50, 1% of the firm to another person in the firm, and lo and behold, ownership transition was underway. But selling that 1% actually hurt. Wow, this isn't all my own baby. But as we went on in the 90s, we enjoyed other growth and attracted some good people. And I came to understand that some of these people are really good project managers, were conferring value on the firm. And so I sold some of them some stock, some of my stock out of here. By the way, that 5,000 shares of stock, we did a 20-for-1 split of stock, and I got another 20 times 5,000 is 100,000. I got another stock certificate, number 2, for 95,000 shares. So as I was selling shares off, I was selling out of the 95,000 shares, keeping the precious original stock certificate, number 1. But I sold some stock to others, and they came by and put checks on my desk. And I came to understand that our growing success was the result of the efforts of many people, and that value is being created here, and not just by me. That it's appropriate that I share back that value. And that is appropriate because that is fairness. They are creating the value, not just me. So what has evolved from that has been a systematic program of inclusion in ownership at McAdams and the transitioning of that ownership, enabling wealth accumulation vehicle for our top talent, and also enabling the ability to transition leadership, and therefore we can remain a legacy firm and not have to sell out at the founders, the 100% owners' retirement. It is that program that I am going to talk about here today. So here we go. That's still me. Okay. A preamble to this, our ownership transition program is a continuous cycling of ownership. It's a process. Retaining enables us to retain talent and therefore to grow the firm. And it enables us to avoid having to sell out at the owner's retirement. So in creating a continuous ownership program, I'm not the world's biggest authority on this. Again, this is how we have done it in our firm. Understand, first of all, we are a professional services corporation, like attorneys, physicians, accountants, architects, engineers, landscape architects. These professionals perform and deliver the services using their own expertise. The professionals within the firm are creating this value. They are the ones creating it. So reasons for transitioning the ownership, this is somewhat repetitious of the past, but retention of talent, avoiding having to rebuild the firm due to some talented person leaving, somebody managing a lot of clients. Whoops, we were doing great, but now we have to drop back and find somebody else to serve these clients. To enable growth of the firm, the retention of talent enables you to grow the firm. Again, fairness to the value creators and the endurance of the firm, having a legacy firm. Those are the reasons. The internal transition of ownership is about inclusion in wealth building for those employees who are creating value here, rooted in fairness. And the value creators are truly those who are excellent at firm management or even at the internal services, such as the chief financial officer or human resources officer, and the very direct client-facing delivery service people within the firm. They are creating value in the firm. By the way, ownership transition is not about percentages of ownership. That's a zero-sum game. It's about the value, the dollar value of this. Transition of ownership is best done over time. It's an event. It's not an event, it's a process. And it's very difficult to accomplish this internally only at the end of the owner's career. We figure it takes about 20 years to transition ownership 100% of the time. We really got going in our ownership transition program about year 2000. So we've been at it 24 years now. We figure people acquire stock, professionals acquire stock in their 30s and 40s, and they divest stock in their 50s and 60s. And the average share of stock is held for a period of 20 years. That's an average, of course. And so if they hold it for 20 years, then we are deliberate about trying to turn over 5% of our ownership every year so that in 20 years we can do a complete transition. All right, as we see it, to establish an ownership transition program, there are 4 things to get right in it. First of all, a means of valuation of the firm. The firm has got to have a known, agreed-upon value. The second is to craft a shareholders agreement. It is sometimes called a buy-sell agreement. I don't think that's nearly as good a name as as a shareholders agreement, because it has to do with so much more than buying and selling. It has to do with how we will all behave within this. The third is establish a criteria for whom to invite in to the ownership program year by year as you go along. And fourth is establish the procedures for the continuous nature of it. So we're going to talk through those 4 steps here. Determine a valuation of the firm. The firms have a potential to create profit. They're this black box and they spit out their golden eggs. And so because they can generate profit, they do have an economic value in the marketplace or to just internal shareholders. That value is held by the owners of the firm. So determining a valuation of your firm is very important, and I cite a couple of ways to do this. One is by appraisal, by professional business appraisal. If you do that, and it's one way to do it indeed, I strongly advocate that you use a business appraiser who is specific in the design firm industry. A lot of them will say, oh, any firm, yeah, I know how to do this. I'll evaluate. Go stay within the industry. I have a comment here, ESOPs, which I think was talked about in this room just prior to this session. We don't know anything about ESOPs. We have avoided ESOPs because our maybe not totally well thought out impression of it is that ESOPs take ownership and spread it too thin. And what we want to do is we want to take the entrepreneurial type of the people in our firm who are really working hard to create value, to build our firm, and concentrate ownership more heavily on those people and not spread it out to folks who are just good-serving employees. There are valuation ratios available in the industry, and Zweig Group has excellent ratios, and we subscribe to Zweig's ratios. More on that in a second, but they do some continuous industry research. Is Tracy Eves in? Okay, all right. She can say it very efficiently about how they do all this research to understand the ratios of value to the firm's metrics. So Zweig, I'm not intending to shill for Zweig, although I'm very happy to, but we subscribe to Zweig's program. Every year we get their valuation report, and that has a number of ratios for valuing your firm. So here's how that looks. Zweig has a lot of different categories of valuation. The Z3 value they publish is for internal transitions of firms. And they've done a lot of research on different firms' internal transition valuations. They've come up with a value per full-time equivalent employee, per FTE, of $96,000. By the way, we get their report every year, and boy, that has grown up from about $52,000 to $96,000 in 20 years' time. The value per net service revenue is 63%. If somebody's doing $10 million a year, well, then their firm is probably worth $6.3 million. The value per backlog is 58%. The value per earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization is 4 times, and the value per profit is 3.8, and value per book value is 1.84 times the book value. Each one of those criteria represent a total firm value. They don't interact with each other, but each one is an indicator of what this firm is perhaps worth. And so you average these things. We don't use all of these. We don't bother to track backlog, and we'll go with EBITDA rather than profit. So those are not highlighted. The 4 that are highlighted are what we use. This is how the computation works. Down the left is those valuation metrics, and then in the next column is those ratios that we've just talked through. And then I have made up a firm out of the thinnest possible air, and I've said, you know what, this firm has 45 people in it. And so as to the number of people in the firm, you multiply that times the 96,000, and this firm's worth $328 million. Then net service revenue. This is a firm that did $6.8 million in revenue. And I'm going to here. $6.8 million in revenue, and at 0.63 per net service revenue, that indicates this firm is worth $4.284 million. The earnings of the firm, I made these numbers up, $1 million, and therefore that's $4,040,000, and the book value is, let's say, $1,850,000, and therefore the book value indication is $3.404 million. Then in yellow below that is $4,014,000 is the firm value. That's the average of the four numbers above. We do think it is very wise to use more than just one indicator on here. And then I made up the number of shares as 64,000 shares. And so, you know what? A share is worth $62.72. So that's how we value our firm. All right. The craft a shareholders agreement, if you want to call it a buy-sell agreement, okay, fine. But a lot of deliberate attention needs to be put into this. This, in green on the slide, this is a covenant among all us shareholders. We're all entering into this group, which is the group that is the ownership of this precious company. And we are not going to have any fights among us in that. A shareholder is a shareholder. We're all going to behave according to this. We will always transact our stock according to what we call the ASV, the agreed stock value. And that's according to what that computation that we just had up says it is. We get the new ratios every year, but we always will transact our stock according to our agreed stock value, ASV. And there are many other things, and it includes non-competes and many, many other aspects in there. But examples of the shareholders agreement can be found in the public domain, but do hire an attorney to craft this agreement, and do hire an industry-specific attorney. It does really matter. This is quite a big issue, and we're not going to go into the depth of it in this unless in questions and answer people want to do so. But this is not about crafting a shareholders agreement. It's just that you need one. Criteria for inviting into ownership. Examples of things that an organization might use and that we use is, can that person who's rising up in the ranks, can they lead a group or a department? Can they book work? Are they a rainmaker? Can they hunt? Can they cross-sell? Are they somebody who's an expert outstanding in their field? These are just examples of criteria you might use. The next one is journeyman, and let me explain. This is one that we have created. I don't know if we're even using the word correctly, but this is what we've adopted for. This is for people who in our firm are not real leaders, and they are not taking our firm to higher levels by directly serving clients or bringing in work. They are excellent at performing the work. They are efficient. They are upbeat about doing it. They are accurate. They've been with us a long time. And so occasionally, and deliberately, we take some of those in. Let's include this person in. Boy, they serve well. If they are a person who, when you land a big project and you're the project manager, you say, I want Joe on this project. We've got to really hum for this client that we've got. Then that's the kind of person that over time you say, you know what, let's cut Joe in on the, he's helping us create some value. That's a journeyman. These are our criteria. Everybody must have a company first attitude. By the way, that pervades our company, a company first attitude. This is not about any one person. The company has got to stay healthy, and then we'll all do fine. Also, some situational things like length of tenure with a firm and the time span until retirement. Final thing, establish the procedures for continuously transitioning ownership. I'm about to go into how we do that. We do that annually in January. And a decision-making process for all the small details in the annual, what we call the churn of ownership annually. So how we do it, we have developed this and tweaked it since about 1998. We deal in our stock in and out of our company's treasury. We're actually not selling shareholder to shareholder. Late career shareholders sell off some of their holdings each year, and we call those divestors. And those shares are then offered out to the early and mid-career members of our firm who are growing in our firm and in their value. And they are the acquirers. And in between those are the static members who have gotten a large enough share of the pie, but they will work to make the pie more valuable, still to create additional value within our firm. So here is a diagram about this, and I'll talk about this, but I also may come back to it later in this. On the left is a divestor. You can tell this person is later in their career because of the gray streaks in their hair. Okay. In January, okay, shareholders, who wants to sell some stock? I'll sell 500 shares. I'll still sell 1,000. Fine. Those shares are sold into the company, and you see the cash coming the other way. The company pays that divestor that money. Congratulations, you've helped to build all this wealth. Here's your payoff. You're into your payoff period in here. The company then takes that stock and bonuses it to acquirers. And so the acquirers get it, but the acquirers do not have to pay for it. But the acquirers have some skin in the game. That bonus of stock is a taxable event. That stock, every share of that stock has a very defined value down to the cent. So 100 shares of stock times what was the other number, $62.72. That's income. And actually that gets added to the W-2 at tax time. So you receive your W-2 and it will show all of the withholdings of tax. But it has, as an income number, a higher number because the value of that stock bonus is in that number. So the shareholder, the acquirer, does have to pay for the tax. We do this because it is 100% tax efficient. An alternative is we could give somebody $10,000 worth of stock, and how do they pay for it? Employees don't have stockpiles of investable cash. So, let's give them a bonus. In order for them to pay the company back $10,000, we got to bonus them $15,000. That is so tax inefficient. So, really, around a conference table one day, a couple of decades ago, we said, why don't we just give them the stock? And then it's done. This is a very tax efficient system. All right. Another way to look on this is here's a diagram of annual wealth accumulation. These shouldn't be in equal 1/3, but they are. That doesn't matter too much. But at the bottom is a divestor, or the group of divestors, I should say. And those divestors collectively have decided to sell off some of their part of the pie. And that goes to the acquirers, and the static people's share of the pie does not increase. Now, some things about this. The green center of this is the value of the company on January 1. The red outer rim is the value of the company on December 31. The company grew in value. We push growth strongly. So a couple of things about that. Hey, look at the static people. Their slice of the pie didn't get any bigger or smaller, but the value of it did grow. Okay? The acquirers are winning doubly, though they've got to pay tax on the new stuff. They don't have to pay tax along the way as it grows in value. And the divestors have certainly less of the pie, but they got a lot of cash. And if you look outside of that skinny slice with the dashed lines, they also got growth on the stock they haven't yet sold. So they're doing well. In our system, a lot of times divestors sell an amount that equals less than the growth of the stock that they were holding. If it goes on and on long enough, it's a perpetual money machine. But at some time, we will, manage a little pressure into there and say it's time for you to sell down a little more quickly, and give an opportunity for other people to do this. A comment, if I may, in fact, I'm going to go back. About this, just to illustrate how this might get started. Let's say that I have a company and I'm the sole owner of it, and I get these ratios for the company. The company is worth $1 million on January 1. And December 31, we've grown 15%, and that $1 million is $1,150,000. But I haven't really done that all by myself. So what I do here, Bob, if you'll bear up. Look, I want to talk to you, Bob. we have done well this year, and you are the reason for right much of it. You're serving clients well. You're growing the accounts that you are in. I would like to offer you some ownership in this entity, all right? I would like to give you $25,000 worth of the company. We can work out how many shares that is. But you get $25,000. Are you okay with that? By the way, there is a catch to it. You'll have to pay the tax on the $25,000, all right? You can adjust your withholdings with the accounting department if you want to, so that it's not that big hit next April 15th. But what we feel is right is for you to have $25,000 worth of value. That value will grow and will come back next year and perhaps add some more to it. So maybe Bob says, yeah, well, thanks. I'll do that. Well, then I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back. I just lost $25,000. I'm going to go back to accounting before you get there to adjust your withholdings. And I'm going to say, cut me a check for $25,000. Okay? So I didn't lose. I'm not sad. I used to own 100%. Now I own 99%. No. I got $25,000. That's mine. And the tax treatment on that is going to be capital gains, not income tax rates. All right? So the owner gets cash of $25,000. The owner then holds a value, not of $1,150,000, but of $1,125,000. That ain't so bad. And what else the owner has? The owner has an employee that will stay. All right? Bound to the company. Hey, I'm liking this. The shareholder, the new shareholder, does get $25,000 worth of stock, but must pay the taxes on it, but that value will grow, and the opportunities to acquire more will come along. So that's how this starts on a small scale. And now, for us, it has grown to a larger scale thing. So this actually is a slightly dumbed down version of actually McAdams Company's annual transition of ownership. We don't have any names in it. But what's on the left up at the top is some divestors, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4. I think they're brothers, and they're both named Daryl. And then only one static person in here, and all below are the acquirers. And so at the left are the shares and the value of the shares before the transition. This is the December 31 valuation of the prior year. This is 2020, so it's 2019 December 31 valuation of our company. What were our revenues for the year? What was our head count of employees and our profits and our book value? And you apply the Zweig ratios, you average those things. And up in yellow, you see $127.29 is the value of our company. Okay. And so one divestor has raised his hand and said, I'll sell 2,280 shares, and so on down the line. And the negative numbers in the blue. The blue is all the transition going on. The negative numbers are the sales, and below that, the positive numbers are the acquisitions going on here. Now, a lot of thought goes into who gets how much of this stock. This is in a ladder here, but one of the main factors of who's at the top of the ladder is tenure in the program. How long have you been in the program? But another one is year by year by year, how much are you contributing to the growth of our organization, the growth and the profitability? That one is very, what is it when it's, I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment here. Subjective. Okay, sorry. That one is very subjective. Well, it just seems like George is really knocking it down. Well, George is going to get more stock bonused than somebody else who is not perceived to be contributing as much. The Ownership Transition Committee of our board, and it is all the internal board members, we have some externals, but the Ownership Transition Committee spends a lot of time reviewing this and talking with the supervisors of some of these shareholders in here too. We start people out with, just as we did with Bob, with somewhere around $20,000 to $25,000 worth of stock. So here at the bottom of this chart, you see 180 shares, and that's $22,912. Those are two newbies that we brought in this year, that year, 2020. And going up from that, we gave two of last year's people. Well, one is last year and one is an additional year beyond that. We also just gave them 180 shares as well. But here, close to the bottom of this stack, you see there are 1, 2, 3, 4 180s, and immediately you hit a 500 share person. That is somebody who has come to us as a mid-career professional, and they are really good at what they do, and they're really into building the company. They're maybe creating a new service area, director of transportation, something that we got into a few years ago, is going on fire. Somebody else came and did a public spaces initiation and said, I'm going to build that here in this company, and I don't like to lose, and I'm going to make it happen. People like that, they have to wait 2 or 3 or 4 years before they're actually brought into ownership, but then they are bonused higher amounts, and they climb this ladder faster. They are creating more value than other people. We work hard to have fairness in how we dole out the ownership of the company. There was one other thing too, and I don't have my notes for it, so we will go on. Here it is. Managerial hierarchy within the firm is important, and we have a good one. But ownership is different. Ownership is unattached. You can't say, I own $82,000 worth of the company, and you own $60,000 worth of the company, and so I don't have to do what you say. No, if that person is your supervisor, it's just completely different. All right? The $82,000 person has probably gotten lesser amount of stock bonuses, but has been in the company for longer. So let's not confuse ownership proportions with the managerial rankings in the firm. Any shareholder who is coasting gets little or no new stock, and the late career people who have probably been static for a while are then encouraged to begin divesting, so that there is a flow of stock off of them and able to be put to the others. Again, we don't want to create any new, we're getting rid of the 800-pound gorilla. And so that's why at some point we have people become static and say, hey, look, just work for making this more valuable for yourself and for everybody else. And then at some point, out of the concern for keeping the ownership transitioning, how about you become a divestor in this? Final point here is, how do the acquirers pay for stock? As I said earlier, the employees don't have stockpiles of investable cash. They can come up, maybe they do, maybe they have a rich family or some other means, sell something off, and they can come up with the cash to pay. The company could do annual bonuses of cash, but I've already told why we're averse to doing that, because we have to pay out more. It just seems silly to send somebody $15,000 knowing that they need to pay us $10,000 back. So we do bonus the stock. It may be a little hard for everybody to get their head around, but it sure works really well for us. So that is the conclusion of my description of how we do this and why. And I wonder if I have caused any questions. Yes?
How do you decide how much cash to keep in your company for the buyback?
Okay, there are so many things to talk about. First of all, we are a C corporation, not a subchapter S. We elected to go with C because the federal tax rates, as of about 2018, dropped down to 21% for corporations. So our tax expense on our earnings is 21%. If we were an S corp, then the S corp pays out dividends, and those dividends are not a taxed event. But the holders of shares of the S corp, of course, have to pay the tax. So if the top owners are in the top tax rate, then those dividends have got to be at 37% or 35 anyway %. The money that flows out of us is just that 21%, or in North Carolina 24%, because we got a 3% state tax. But also it is the case here. Again, this may shock you. But so pervasive is our intent to grow, and growth costs money, that to the shareholders, we don't pay dividends. And that's why being a C Corp for us doesn't hurt us. If we paid dividends, those also would be taxable, double taxation. but we don't pay dividends. The late career people are sure getting some nice checks at the end of their career. But we leave that money in the company because growth costs money. And we are totally intent on growth. So, right here.
Do you all have different classes of stock? Let's say like a voting and a non-voting when it comes to controlling firm.
Actually, we do not. We keep it just totally traditional. Stock is stock. The CEO runs the company, but is subject to the board of directors on which he serves, ex officio voting. And no, it's just all straight up. The firm is run well so that everybody appreciates the firm. Frankly, there's a lot of love there, and we don't want this kind of different hierarchy. You own some stock, but it's not voting stock, so no. Stock is stock. We keep it simple. Yes?
I actually have a few questions.
Okay.
So employees that leave your organization, they sell back their stock?
Yes.
And then,
Our shareholders agreement specifies this. Our shareholders agreement specifies that the company has certain options if certain things occur. The number one thing triggering a possible option to buy is cessation of employment. And the company always does that. Maybe later I'm going to talk about one exception to that. But so, yeah, you're leaving, you've divested for a few years, but now you got the rest of your chunk left there, and we'll put them on a 5-year payout. That is 60 months of checks to pay down what their value was. Enforcing a non-compete agreement makes it important that you pay that over time, because if they leave the firm and then start competing with us, the shareholders agreement says you don't get 100% of this. If you join a competing firm, you get 60%. If indeed you directly compete with us and try to pull our people or our clients away from us, it's not a 60% payout, it's a 35% payout. Okay, you enjoyed that benefit in our company, and we are not going to pay you out 60 checks full value when you're turning around and hurting us. So that's in the shareholders agreement. Okay, question 2?
correctly that you do no cash bonuses, all your bonuses?
No. We do bonuses, and in fact, for some of the leaders, there's an incentive compensation plan. And yes, indeed, that does help them with their taxes. But it's just an incentive compensation plan, and those tend to be the same people that are getting some of the larger tax bonuses. So that does help it. Yep. Actually, it is not. It is not. We don't have any names here, and we're not passing this out to you, but this is to illustrate how the process works. But we did that for a while, but in the last couple of years, or 3 or 4, we have ceased doing that because the difference in the amount of shares that somebody owns, 250 shares came there. That's equivalent to a raise, and why show to all the other shareholders that, this person got, I didn't get that much. So, yeah, we don't quite do that. Yep. Yes?
You said you have a committee that determines who gets what.
Right.
How do you make sure that's fair and transparent? Is it metric-based?
Well, to some extent. Certainly to invite newbies in, any shareholder can nominate somebody and has got to write up why, and there are even guidelines to tell us about this aspect and this and this. So as to inviting somebody new in, there's that. As to the annual spread of the redeemed stock back out to others, that's a different process, and it's relative. We want to find a home for all the stock, so we're going to give all of it out, but in various different proportions. And again, that's just subjective. This time I retained the word. That's a subjective process that a lot of people in the firm get involved in, and members of the board of directors, internal, who are the ownership transition committee, go to various different supervisors to have a discussion about people. So there's some deliberateness to that, but ultimately it is just subjective.
It is dependent on the amount of shares that come back into circulation.
That's right. However many shares this is, and I don't have totals on it, but this equals those shares, and that's why that's 0. And again, there's some encouragement. It doesn't take much to encourage somebody to cash in some shares and get those checks every month. So, yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
John, you might have answered this, but
Okay.
did you say that there is a certain
Nowhere is that written. So again, that's one of the subjective things. But we want to manage the system so that, again, we don't create some problem down the road that the only way we can cash Billy out is that we have to sell the firm or do something else. So, we manage this. And it's in our culture. We talk about it. We preach it all the time. Company first, okay? You maybe wish you had a little bit more than you have, but you have a good thing here. We all have a good thing. Let's keep it healthy. So that's how we run the program. Yes. Actually, I don't think so. I don't think so. We'd be surprised if somebody down in these ranks wanted to turn and be a divester. And we do have a soft policy that we don't always administer that says, look, if you're going to be a divester, decline bonuses for 2 years, okay? And become static and then become a divester. What we don't want is somebody to get a bonus of stock and turn right around and say, I'd like to divest. That would ruin the system if that occurred. I mean, everybody's saying, just give me the cash. Just give me the cash every year. Well, we can't just give you the cash. We can give you, we've given the cash to the seller, to the divester. Well, at some point there will be cessation of employment, and the company will invoke the option that we have all agreed to in the shareholders agreement. So, yeah, Bob.
Well, that's the same thing maybe in reverse.
How are you enjoying your $25,000 of ownership? Isn't it though? Is it? All right.
My person sitting next to me had $25,000 offered to them, but they were reluctant to take it. Have you ever had that situation?
Yeah,
where
yeah.
value creators
Yeah.
are not wanting to be a shareholder,
Yeah.
thereby perhaps exposing the firm as far as that retention is concerned?
Yeah. We have, mostly that shows up in declines on the total amount offered. Here, if somebody's being offered $70,000, they're going to have to pay tax on $89,000. Now, these are high-ranking people up here in the 700 shares and the $89,000 tax bonuses. But there are people who say, thank you, but can I take 60% of that? And then we do a second-round offering, and we say, okay, we need to find homes for the remaining. Again, as I think I may have said, we want to keep the amount of outstanding shares roughly even. There may be a little bit of noise in it as somebody departs, but roughly even, because if the number of shares goes down, that's concentration. That divider in the spreadsheet where we compute the value, instead of 64,000 shares, there's less. Well, their share value went up, not because we became more valuable, but because we concentrated the shares on people, so that share value goes up. And conversely, if we bonus out more shares than we bought in, then that dilutes everybody. Everybody's shares got less valuable. So we work hard to keep that in balance. Yes. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Was there a question here? Dana, did you have a question? Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay.
So, mid-year,
Sean Gleason has been in the program for, I don't know, a dozen years. Yeah.
so mid-year, somebody resigns and they're implementing they come with that investor they've left or whatever.
Yeah.
The company is a holder at that point as well on the divestor list.
A holder.
Company owns some of that stock.
Well, yeah. The company has redeemed that stock and bought it in, and therefore for half a year there is concentration. But come January, the very next year, that goes right back into circulation. Yeah.
So it seems like you've got a model that works really well for you. If you don't mind the context of how big your firm is.
Oh, don't mind at all. Yeah, I don't mind at all. We have a headcount of 460 people in the firm. We were 70 or 80 people when we really got this program underway. And that was at a point in time, maybe it was 80 people. That was at a point in time in 2002 or so, 2003. And along came the Great Recession, and boy, did that hurt us. We were 100% in land development design work, and it's no fun to be running a land development design firm when there isn't any of it to do. And so our firm lost all kinds of value in 2/3 of our people, and not voluntarily. So anyway, we have grown from about 55 people in 2009 to 460 people in 2024.
Would you say that it has scaled well across that growth, your program?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's working. It works. 63. Yeah. Yeah.
The number of shares has always stayed the same, or do you...
Well, actually, the Great Recession had an effect. We have 171,000 shares outstanding now, and that is because I redistributed ownership in the Great Recession. I owned too much of the firm. I had sold down to others who were putting checks on my desk. I had sold down to where I owned 82%, but some of the people that we IDO'd were shareholders. We promised them, if we survive, we'll pay you for these shares after the Great Recession, but we can't spare any money now. So, but those shareholders leaving the firm resulted in my degree of ownership going from 82% to 89% or so. But I went to some other critical leaders inside the firm who are very capable, well thought of, and probably marketable, and even in those conditions could have left our firm and gone to others, and they did not do that. They stayed at their 60% salary rate. I was working for free. I was guaranteeing all the debt. In this ham and eggs thing, I was the pig, they were the chicken. Anyway, they loyally stayed through there and pulled us through that. Our strategic plan was down to one word: survive. And so I just took some more treasury stock, and I said, you get this much stock, and you get this. And so for 5 other people, 6 of us in that group, I diluted myself down to about 45% ownership. And so really, I have been, once we got this program revved back up, and it was at that juncture, though, that we also came up with the idea of, why don't we just bonus the stock out? Don't make people pay it because we have to give them the money to, we did a lot of inventing of the program then. Yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, there are 2 Brians here. So Brian Sealaff, yeah.
So John, you've always preached in our group to focus on the value and not the percentage. And I think it's always been a great point of something I've taken away from you. But the system's worked out well over the years, but I think can you just talk a little about what you shared with us in our group of it's you've lowered your stock, your value with what you do with your employees and the retention rates and all that.
Yeah.
It just continually keeps growing the value of McAdams.
Yeah. Well, this program is of central importance to McAdams Company. It really is. It's not very well kept secret. Only 1 out of 8 people is in the program, but a lot of thought goes into it, and there's a lot of appreciation for it. But yeah, Brian, you're right. I have preached, and I know I've said it, and you've repeated it back to me. Don't focus on percentages. This isn't about percentages. It's about value. I just offered Bob $25,000, and who knew what the percentage is, all right? But you have $25,000 of value. Now let's grow that value. Percentages just don't work. How do you move somebody up this line if the percentages are always changing? And if you say, okay, hey, I'm the owner of this small company, but some other people are helping. So person number 1, you have 10%, and person 2 and 3, you have 5 and 5%, and I have 80%. Okay, that's great. What happens 3 years later when the contribution of those people is different and you need to cut somebody else in? I don't know how you handle that with percentages. If somebody else is then cut in, out of whose percentage does that cut come? Let's just focus on dollars. It's so much easier, so much more fine-grained. Okay, this is just some John McAdams feelings about these things. I'm just throwing this out for people to ponder. Yes? No. Their stock value is growing. And if they own a few $100,000 of McAdams stock, in almost all cases, that way exceeds the equity they have in their house. I mean, that's a good thing, and it grows. We from 2012 to 2023, we grew at an annual rate. Our stock value grew at an annual rate of about 22%. I mean, it doubles in 3 years at 22% compounded. So, no, we don't feel like we need to, come stroking. I'm so sorry that we're not giving you more stock here. Here's a consolation prize. No. Let's just all take this great company that we love and let's make it bigger and better. Let's grow it. Our jobs do get bigger as the company gets bigger. You promote people from within, salaries therefore grow, and as the company gets bigger and more impactful, we also can land we can land talent, and we can land the bigger and more iconic projects as well. There's so many good things that come from growth.
To add to that, it's disconnected from the stock program, but there are cash bonuses, and those people that are high owners and static are generally in a bonus situation. So it's not that they're not getting anything, and they're done at different times of the year, so they really are truly disconnected.
Yeah.
We aggregate the first 3 quarters and bonus out after that, and then take the 4th quarter rolled into the next year. First part of that. John, I was going to say, for the benefit of the room, if you could just note a little bit about, I forget the term that we have now assigned to it, but kind of the on-deck folks.
Oh, okay. We call them associates. Yeah.
Extension of talent, and maybe they're not quite there, but we don't want them to look out beyond the pastures of McAdams and other firms where they feel like they can move themselves up. They certainly have those opportunities here, but talk to them about kind of an advanced invitation into the program.
Yeah. We don't want our people to get picked off, and frankly, we enjoy a good reputation. We work hard on that. We have a good time among ourselves. But yeah, somebody who's coming up and as Brian just said, that they're not quite at the level where the Ownership Transition Committee is ready to invite them in. A representative of that group goes to them and says, let's talk to you about your getting into the Ownership Transition Program, the company ownership program, and you are now we've decided that you are we're calling an associate, and so we used to call it on deck, and so we are going to invest in some extra training and guidance and mentoring of you to get you up to a level where in a year or 2 from now we can bring you into the ownership program, and it's continuous, and we explain about it also. We have had a few people in recent years who have left our firm, have gotten picked off just before we were about to go to them, and that never works. We never have gotten anybody to stay because we then offer them stock. We also don't want to take somebody who's walking out the door and go and wave some stock and say, "Oh, come back, okay, we'll include you in some stock." We don't want to do that. Even if we were going to do it, we still don't want to behave in that way and have them thinking, well, they never really were going to give me stock. I had to threaten them with departure for them to do so. And we're not going to go there. Yeah. For a much smaller firm, something like this could be done. I mean, for one thing, to bonus the stock to somebody rather than pay them money for them to pay it back to you, that's something that could fit any size firm.
Actually, this is a very simple thing you can relate to on your firm too.
Yeah.
It's just using a formula that are public.
We don't have our firm valued. We buy Zweig's annual valuation report and use the updated ratios. So actually, we date our stock redemptions and our stock bonuses. We date on January 1. But it takes until March to get this all figured out and really do the transaction, because Zweig takes until early to mid-March to get all of the data figured out. And I think it would take that time. I'm not criticizing Zweig at all. But we're waiting for the 2024 valuation to come out. That is the 2024 ratios. And by then, we have long figured out what our own numbers were as of December 31st of the prior year. The revenues, profit, book value, and headcount. Yeah. Yes?
Have you ever had a case where you've got a competitor that you know would really provide value to your company, but you have to break their golden handcuffs to get them across to you? So I think that was a slide saying you usually got to be in the company 3 or 4 years or something like that.
Yeah, right.
To come in.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever had the example where you've said, yep, you can come in as a shareholder straight away?
Yes, glad that you brought that up. We do grow by acquisition, not much. Most of it's organic, but we so far have done one acquisition. It was in Dallas-Fort Worth. We're in Raleigh, North Carolina, but in Dallas-Fort Worth, because that's an excellent market for what we do. And so in 2018, we got them to join us. We bought the firm from the one sole owner, but then 4 other people, the owner's number 2, as he called him, and 3 other people that were head of 3 departments, planning, landscape architecture, and surveying. even though we were buying the firm from this owner, who was soon to depart, 3 years later departed, we also gave some of our stock to those people. Those folks then had something they'd never had before. They had ownership in the firm that employs them. They had never had that before. And we felt like that was important. They are, after all, 1,200 miles away from us. We're paying this guy. He's leaving. We don't want these people to leave. So, yes, ownership stock is a hugely important tool in growth by acquisition. It is. Since that time, we have kissed so many frogs, and we have not acquired anybody else, but we're still looking and still trying. And we will use stock in it. Yeah. There was another question, maybe? I'm happy to stay and talk. It is 4:30. You know. So, is it? Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you got something out of this. If I may give a postscript about this, and this is personal, but I told you at the beginning of the session about my starting the firm and capitalizing it with the $5,000. Well, I founded the firm in April 2 of 1979, and I opened the doors at 8 a.m. I'm going to retire in January of 2025, just a few months hence, and I own 14,000 shares of this company. In January, it is my intent to sell 9,000 of the 14,000 shares. And, come on. This one, right there. I will hold on to this. I will hold on to these 5,000, and I will remain a shareholder. The shareholder group has got to agree to this, got to agree not to exercise the option to purchase upon my cessation of employment. I'm having one-on-one discussions with that, and I did Sean Gleason last night, and I did Brian Purdy this morning. The other way, yeah. And so to make sure that no shareholder or the company itself doesn't buy those 5,000. Yes, the 9,000, yes, but the 5,000, I'm the biggest sentimentalist and nostalgist. And you see that, it's got my name everywhere. I mean, I signed it, and it's got here, and it's here, and it's here. and did you see the date? It's 1979. I would like to keep that. But then here's the plan. It'll be 2025 when I retire. I want to keep this until 2029. And on April 2 of 2029, at 8 a.m., 50 years to the hour of my having started this company, I will take this stock certificate into the firm, and then I will redeem it at that point in time. So that's the end of the story. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Zweig Letter Podcast. We hope that you can be part of elevating the industry and that you can apply our advice and information to your daily professional life. For a free digital subscription to the Zweig Letter, please visit thezweigletter.com/subscribe to gain more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about leadership, finance, HR, and marketing your firm. Subscribe today.